Hi, I'm Faroz Khan from iTrack Recruitment, and welcome to the Low Code Podcast, where we're dedicated to increasing awareness and appreciation of the power of low code. In this podcast, we'll hear from developers about their career journeys and how low code has enabled them to achieve new levels of success and innovation. So let's go. Hi, Micah. How are you?
Hey, doing well. How are you, Faraz?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be a guest.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. And obviously, you were referred to me. So, once I kind of looked at your profile, I thought you'd be a very good guest. So, and we'll obviously dive a bit deeper into your background and experience. But it'd be good to start with you giving us a bit of a introduction to yourself, who you are, where you're from.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, again, thank you for having me. My name is Micah McMullen. I am in the United States, up in the Northeast, about 40 miles or so north of Boston. So usually when I say Boston, people have a rough idea of where that is. But yeah, way up in the Northeast. I've been working with the Mendix platform since 2013. So hit that like 10-year, a decade mark. And yeah, I feel old. So yeah. But yeah, currently I'm the director of engineering at eXp Realty. eXp Realty is one of the largest and fastest growing real estate brokerages in the world. So it's been a really fun journey for me. I've been here for 5.5 years. So even just over that couple of years, just the growth we've experienced, the applications we built to support the company has been, it's been really fun. I've learned a lot personally. Outside of work, love being outdoors, hiking, mountain biking, spending time with my two small boys and my wife. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
They must keep you very busy then, two small boys.
Yeah, very busy and very exhausted.
Yeah, I can imagine. Great. So just going back to obviously, you're working with Mendix. If we go back to the beginning, can you kind of talk us through where your career started, how you kind of came across Mendix, and kind of how that journey kind of took off?
Yeah, sure. It was I was telling you earlier, it was almost as Mendix found me, kind of. I was working at a medical device company around that 2013 mark, and I was working as a business systems analyst. And we were in the midst of this project looking at we had a web portal that was just very old. I think like someone's uncle had built it in their free time, like for fun. No one knew how to support this thing, and it was just causing problems for the company and the users of it. So our CTO at the time, I remember him kind of coming down to like my cubicle in my boss's office with his laptop. Like I'm remembering it almost like him running down the hall. They did it, and we're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I found this company, Mendix. I don't know how he found them. But kind of got into, sort of a pre-sales sort of, hey, this is what we'd like to do. And he's like, they rebuilt the whole thing in 2 days. We're like, what are you talking about? So he pulled it up, he starts showing us, and of course it wasn't fully built, but it was like kind of the framework was there, the skeleton, and we're like, this is awesome, this is really cool. And so yeah, next thing I know, I'm in I'm in a training, like a 5-day training with a couple other colleagues, and Jasper from Mendix. Anyone familiar with Mendix, who Jasper is, going through the training with him, and yeah, I haven't looked back since. So yeah, 10 years ago. Yeah, it's cool.
And at that point, when obviously before that kind of situation, were you working with traditional, or what was your kind of role?
Yeah, I would say I was doing a lot with the Salesforce platform.
Okay.
And it was kind of, it sort of got into that in that role. Salesforce is a great tool as well. And it was we and my boss, and we were sort of outside of the IT organization. And so you could say we were sort of this like shadow IT. We were, we were getting impatient, waiting on IT to build us, what we wanted, automation and, improvements to processes. So we somehow convinced IT to let us in the sandbox, and we started building our own stuff. So we were doing that. And then I was also working on a bunch of Visual Basic macros to automate some just really old things that people on the team were doing. Yeah, so it was just, yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit of everything. And then in came Mendix and really kind of turned our world upside down in that group, which was cool.
So basically, when you were kind of learning the Mendix side of things, did you kind of think, okay, is this gonna, because obviously it wasn't well known, you know, in the US and, you know, probably even globally back then that well. Did you have any hesitation thinking, okay, could this affect my career? Am I going to lose what I've learned in the past?
Yeah, I was just really excited to be a part of something different, something new. You know, felt overwhelmed at the same time, just, you know, jumping in the deep end. But yeah, I don't know if that ever really crossed my mind. It was just felt like, hey, here's another tool that I can put in my tool belt. And yeah, sure, I've got these other things as well. But yeah, it was just, I think, more excitement than anything.
Yeah, yeah. And did you kind of, you know, do any research into how big the community was in the US at the time?
I was convinced we were their only customer in the US. I don't, you know, that's probably not the case.
Yeah, yeah,
It just felt that way. It was like,
yeah.
you know, what is this platform? Who are these people? Who are these really tall Dutch guys running around?
Yeah.
It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, you know, come to find out, yeah, there is a bigger presence than just us. But
Yeah.
that's the way it felt in 2013.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, you know, you're 10 years down the line in your Mendix kind of journey. And I think, you know, from our point of view, it's still not the largest community in the US. But for someone who's kind of been in it, have you kind of seen that growth? Can you see it kind of growing year on year?
Yeah, I think you do. And I mean, yeah, it's certainly different than, you know, say in Rotterdam or in the
Yeah.
Netherlands or, you know, Europe. But I have certainly seen, you know, growth here in the States. You know, we're more spread out just because geographic,
Yeah.
much
Yes.
larger area. But no, it's great hearing about different companies and you see, you know, folks that you kind of run into, sort of, so to speak, digitally, you know,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, different conferences or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has grown since, you know, since I first was introduced to the community. Yeah, I'd love to continue to see it grow, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that just takes time.
Yeah. And, you know, in the time that you've used the platform, is there some, you know, 2 or 3 kind of features that they've released that you could talk about that you've kind of been most excited about that, you know, kind of really you couldn't wait for it to kind of come out because it would make your life easier?
I think, yeah, I was thinking about this one and, you know, it goes back a couple of years, but as you think about pretty much anything you build today, there's usually a need for it to, you know, communicate or integrate with something else.
Yeah.
So they introduced native REST, I think it was back at the end of 2017. That was really a game changer. You know, you could do it before, but it was not easy. It was kind of cumbersome to work with. So that introducing that was a big change. So that was definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah.
You know, a few other things I think about. We take a active use with their private marketplace. So being able to build reusable components, being able to kind of share that within our organization. I'm not sure exactly when that became available, but that's something we use every day on every project. So that's huge for us, is the ability to share components and modules.
Yeah. Okay. And, you know, from kind of the things that are, you know, the future, you know, there's so many things happening at the moment, you know, across tech, you know, is there, you know, something in particular that you're kind of looking forward to that, you know, we can expect in the next year or so?
Oh man, I feel like the answer most people want to give here is AI, and oh, we can't wait for AI.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, yeah, I guess I'll talk to that for a second. I mean, yeah, there's excitement around that and what that may or may not do. I mean, I don't know if anyone really knows. But I think, you know, when you talk about low code, for me, it just seems like the continued adoption of it, the continued use of it, the continued expansion of, you know, whatever platform, you know, you're kind of involved with. And as I think about Mendix, for example, you know, they were kind of this like disruptor in the industry for many years. And now really you consider them as a leader in the industry. So it's like, well, who's going to be the next Mendix or the next OutSystems or so even just seeing as other companies emerge and, challenge each other to be better and better. I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. And, you obviously work for an end customer, and, there's often people who might work for consultancies, some work for end customers. It'd be good to kind of hear your perspective, how it is kind of, working for an end customer, your experience, a bit about your role, even what you do on a daily basis.
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, really a keen interest in staying with, an end customer. So like EXP, because it affords you a unique opportunity to really see something grow and mature. So as I think back, I joined the company in 2018, and, we had one app that we were supporting at that point, and there was maybe 4 or 5 developers. And so as you see over time, we've got 70 developers around the world, I think on 4 different continents. Really neat to see just the growth in how an organization matures. And so that to me has been really fun. And so in my role now, I'm not as involved in, development day in and day out on a particular project, but I have the opportunity to help others that are doing that and help coach them. I hopefully mentor them, help them grow. I really enjoy that. That's just a highlight, being able to do that, day in and day out. So I think just being in one place, seeing the growth, helping kind of steer and guide individuals in the group in certain directions. That's really what I look forward to and I'm excited about each day.
Nice. And you're a Mendix MVP. So can you kind of talk us through how that came about? Because obviously that's usually related to what you're doing in the community or what you're kind of adding back to the technology itself. So can you talk us a bit through how that came around?
Yeah, it's Faraz. I feel like some papers got mixed up somewhere, and like I'm still supposed to be in here because there's so many.
You slipped in.
Someone, they switched the folder. I don't know. But no, it's a privilege. I mean, the folks that are in the program are, just people that I've looked up to over the years, worked with in past lives. And just it's a really cool opportunity to be in that group and that community. For me, it was a couple of years back. Actually, it was during the pandemic. Myself and 2 colleagues, we wrote a book on.
Oh, nice.
And that was an interesting experience. I've got a profound respect for people that write books for a living.
Yeah.
It is so much work. Oh my goodness. But it was, that was a really cool experience going through that. And I think that's what kind of at least allowed me to kind of get in the door with the MVP program. So yeah.
How did the book come around? Did someone approach you? Or is it an idea that you guys just had yourself? Or
it was, it's funny. It was a colleague of mine, Brian. I think he texted me one day. He's like, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" And I'm like, "What, like a memoir, like a history? Like, what do you? What's?" And he said the company had approached him and just was interested. Hey, we're looking for someone to put together a book on Mendix, and hey, based on your I think they found him through LinkedIn. And so I think he saw ahead that, man, this will be a lot of work. Let's, maybe we collaborate on something.
Yeah.
I was hesitant at first, but then, hey, how often do you get asked to write?
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. So like, let's do it. I'm all in. And then, meanwhile, months of getting up super early before the kids are up and trying to write. And, so it was a unique experience. I sometimes I'm like, well, would I do that again or not? But we'll see. We'll just have to see if ask me to write another book.
I think that's very interesting, actually. And obviously leaving out sensitive information, is there kind of a couple of projects that you've been involved in that you could talk to us about, that you've been involved in, kind of challenges you overcame, and really kind of key milestones within that you've reached that would be interesting to hear about?
Sure. Yeah. I think, for me, one interesting project was here at EXP. It was when I first kind of landed at the company. We were tasked with kind of redoing the process when agents want to join the company. So you think when you want to apply or join,
Yeah.
a group, or there's, you got to fill out information and
Sure.
walk series of, data points to be collected. And it was in that single application that we were supporting at the time. We wanted to pull it out because it was becoming trouble. And I remember at the time, our one of our leadership said, "Hey, we've tried to do this a few times, and it's been really challenging. And even the last guy said it couldn't be done." I'm like, "Well, that's anything can be done, right? Enough time and energy." And
Yeah.
so it was several months of just like really deep into the project, really understanding how it worked today in order to pull it out and build something that stood alone. And so when you talk about I don't know, the cool factor or the wow factor, it's not we weren't sending anyone to Mars.
Yeah.
But for me, this is the first thing that people see when they want to join the company.
Yeah.
So just kind of putting your name on that and being able to do what others had said was going to be too hard or couldn't be done, kind of thing. It was just kind of a cool opportunity to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other one just it came to mind as well
Yeah.
was the first project. So this was back 2013, going through this rapid training here, kind of still not knowing what I was doing. Head was still spinning.
Yeah.
And we had that old web app that was, I think it was written in Cold Fusion or something. And so having this app side by side as we were building the new version of it, that was just a really neat kind of process to go through and learning, what this was all about and how to go about, building an app in Mendix. I think about that from time to time and just how unique I feel like that experience was for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about obviously your projects and when you joined, you mentioned offline, your company was already kind of using Mendix. What was the size of the team then, kind of compared to now?
Yeah, it was tiny. When I joined, I think there was three or four other developers.
Wow.
And we maybe had one or two or three offshore sort of
Yeah.
But it was a small team. It's much bigger now.
Yeah. And you said obviously you got people in different time zones in regards to obviously your US team, and kind of on the there's not that the pool isn't that big. So how have you find kind of when you're growing your team of developers, have you guys focused on more kind of experience based or more people who are good background and we could bring them in and kind of train them?
Yeah, it's been a mix of both, actually. We've had folks with years of Mendix experience come in and they can kind of hit the ground running pretty quickly, and that's always awesome.
Yeah.
We've had some great experience hiring more traditional developers as well, and kind of getting them up to speed, training them, and they pick up on the Mendix platform really quickly because all the concepts are the same.
Yeah.
You're just executing slightly differently.
Yeah.
We've had success in both areas, and I personally I find that folks with a traditional development background tend to as they land in Mendix and they mature there, they become, I think, probably the most talented developers because they've just got that background, that that they think of it in terms of coding. It's just we've had some great luck with that.
Yeah, it's really good. And in the kind of time you've worked with Mendix, obviously you work for other companies and you have a network of people. Have you found that you come across people still who might say, what's Mendix, what's low code?
Oh, sure. Yeah, all the time. That happens pretty regularly. You know, and I think it's not entirely unique, and you know, for Mendix, it's probably, you know, in the other platforms as well. But
Yeah,
you know, you get folks that kind of turn up their nose at it. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure they all have their reasons why they
yeah,
might. Yeah, that happens pretty regularly.
yeah, yeah. And you know, you said obviously the traditional community member, obviously they can sometimes be the best, you know, developers. Um, Obviously there's also, like you said, there's people who can turn their nose to it as well. Have you ever had the conversation with someone like that, and what would be your kind of message to those who are kind of still not convinced or not on board?
Yeah, I think it's usually ask them, you know, well, like why? Like why do you have that perception? And usually, you know, it could be a, you know, a whole host of different reasons, but I think it ultimately comes down to, well, just try it. I mean, if you
Yeah,
haven't tried it, it's hard to, you know, and that's like anything in life, right? If you haven't tried it, you haven't experienced it, well, you know, your opinion doesn't really hold much water. So that's usually what I encourage is, hey, give it a shot, try it out. If nothing else, yeah, you walk away and no harm, no foul, or hey, this becomes another tool in your tool belt.
yeah,
So that's usually what I encourage folks to do.
yeah, yeah. And in your time, have you ever kind of dabbled with any other platforms or kind of looked at any other ones just to compare?
I you know I haven't a ton in sort of my past life though, working with Salesforce platform. It's a little bit different than, you know, you
Yeah.
think of low code develop, but they've got tools within that platform that are quite similar, in fact. So that's probably the one that I have the most
Mm.
experience with, and yeah, that's a phenomenal platform as well. And that was, you know, the first company that I was with there. We was sort of Salesforce served as our back end, and then we had Mendix as sort of a front end.
Mm.
A lot of back and forth integrations, a lot of automation within Salesforce. Maybe had a lot of low code sort of drag and drop components so you can build out workflows as well. But yeah, that's an incredible platform in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah. And you know, you mentioned that obviously, you know, Mendix and a lot of these other platforms, they're quite big in Europe and not
Mm.
so big in the US just as yet. Why do you think that's the reason that it's not kind of, you know, US being so big, you'd expect obviously these platforms are just amazing, you know, and why do you think they're kind of slower to the kind of joining in compared to the Europe side?
I think Stroop waffles. That's why. You know, I don't know. That's a great question. I've asked myself that a number of times. And I don't know. I'm not sure if it's just, you know, you think of like the Netherlands is such a relative speaking to the
Yeah.
US, right? Much
Yes.
smaller
Yes.
country geographically. And I wonder sometimes if it's like the density of, you know,
Yeah.
developers, so it feels much
Mm.
bigger. But yeah, it's funny when we do like last year we did a Mendix house. There was a global hackathon.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I was, and I'm, you know, I'm not far from the Boston office, so I went
Yep.
there. Colleagues were able to fly out. That was really neat, and some other, you know, other partners and customers
Mm.
came as well. But it was funny as we were kind of in the office there. It was pretty low key. It was a fun event, but you know, no one was taking it like crazy serious, right? We were
Yeah.
playing Pong and
Okay.
Mario Kart tournament and stuff. But then we were seeing pictures from the hackathon in Rotterdam, and it was insane. Like
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
sitting on floors, like all
Wow.
night. It was, you know, you couldn't even move in the building. It was
Yeah. Wow.
really funny comparing the
Yeah.
two, you know, the two events. And so I think it's, you know, I don't know what it is, but it's yeah, it's definitely a much different vibe, I think, in the Netherlands than it is here.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you visited the Netherlands at all or not
I
yet?
had I had the privilege of I went to Mendix World in
Nice.
2014,
Nice.
Rotterdam. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful country. And my wife came with me as well, and we
Oh,
ended up
nice.
taking a little, you know, vacation out
Trip.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really neat. I'd love to go back. So it's, you know, it's been a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, obviously, you know, at the moment the events are still kind of virtual, you know, and even myself, I went to my first in person this year and could just feel the difference. Are you kind of looking forward to kind of back to in person events, or are you quite happy with the mixture of things?
Oh man, I'm torn sometimes because it's like, when you're in person, there's nothing to compare
Yeah.
being virtual. But then sometimes I'll see like, hey, we were doing this meetup or that meetup and in Rotterdam. It's like, oh, is there a virtual option? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd love to be able to kind of
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
so like that, like little bit of like that hybrid thing sometimes is
yeah,
nice. But yeah, nothing beats being in person and getting to shake someone's hand
yeah,
and see a presentation firsthand. Yeah. So that's
yeah,
It's I'm glad we're getting back to that.
yeah. Is there any kind of meetups or anything in Boston or the US for Mendix as well, or not
We
so as much?
Yeah, we haven't had one that I'm aware of in a while. And again, it's tough because, maybe Boston's a little different because you got kind of their corporate office
Head office,
there.
yeah.
Where people can come. We did do, they had, when, they were launching Mendix 10 kind of over the summer. They did, there was like a city tour
Oh,
around the
nice.
world, stop in Boston.
Yeah,
So that was cool. I was able to go to that and met some folks there, some other
yeah,
customers, which, I've stayed in touch with, and we've been sharing some insights
yeah,
back. But yeah, maybe not as many opportunities as say, Rotterdam, for example.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And just a kind of final question about, you've had this 10-year journey with Mendix. What's your kind of, future kind of aspirations, goals that you've got set for yourself, to achieve, that, you're kind of thinking, okay, these are the things I'd like to do in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, Faraz, I like that you keep reminding me that it's been 10 years.
I have to make that point, yes.
Now that you're really old, no, I think for me is, I think back to just, 10 years ago and really just, like I said earlier, jumping into the deep end. And I think about the folks that were there to support me at that time, whether it was, colleagues in my office or people at Mendix or whatever. How can I continue to do that for others that are at that spot, early on in their journey? So yeah, EXP, one thing we're kind of pushing for is we've got a number of tools and modules that have been really beneficial for us managing applications at such scale. As we want to give those back to the community,
Nice.
kind of looking at open sourcing some of those projects and some of those modules. So in an effort to just give back, what can we do to help others? So that's just what can we do to give back to the community? So for me personally, and as a group, I think a lot of folks on our team that resonates with them too.
Yeah,
it's just been something we've been talking about internally, and hopefully next year we'll be able to start doing some more of that.
nice. Well, it was really good to have you as a guest. I appreciate you taking the time. It'd be good to probably talk again in the future and see kind of, I won't remind you of the 10 years where you are, and kind of how things have progressed. I think it's always interesting. You're my first Mendix guest in the US, and obviously it's not the biggest pool. So, and you're part of obviously training people, mentoring people, and hopefully help grow that community on, so it'd be definitely good to speak again in the future.
Yeah, no, thank you again. This was a pleasure and a privilege, and this was awesome. So yeah, thanks for having me on, for us.
Amazing. Thanks, Micah.